This is a quick tutorial on the requirements for submitting the submission archive for ECE 275. We're going to again use our demo project, our spacer project example. And here we have our spacer project, which still includes the build directory. The build directory, of course, was the directory that contained our project files along with their executable, and we do not want to submit this as part of the submission format. So we're first going to delete that directory. What we're left with is our top level cmakelist.txt, we have a readme.txt, and we have our source directory, src, which contains our cmakelist.txt file inside the source directory and all of the source files required to compile the program. So once we have that spacer, we need to copy those files onto the ECE3 server. To copy that, you need to use a secure file transfer program or an SFTP program. There are numerous ones that you can simply Google and find the favorite one of your choice. I'm here on a Mac using Transmit, so I've already copied over the spacer program here to the ECE3 server. And now we can go ahead and SSH into that server to be able to utilize that. As a reminder, the ECE3 server is located at ece3.ece.arizona.edu. And now we're in our home directory where we can see the spacer directory that we uploaded. If we cd quickly into that spacer directory, we'll again see that we only have the cmakelist.txt, our readme.txt, and our source directory. What we'd like to do is first we need to change the name of the spacer directory to include our net ID. So we can use the move command to rename the spacer to our net ID, followed by an underscore, followed by the project name. That way, each of the individual assignments submitted can be identified by the net ID. Once we have this, we can now run the tar command, which will tar the directory together, and then we can use a gzip on that to zip it together. But we can do this all in one command. So the command we want is tar. Tar is short for tape archive. It essentially takes a bunch of separate files, combines it all into a single file together, but it doesn't do any compression on it whatsoever. So we want to do, in addition to creating that tar archive, so we have our C command here, we also wanted to do a gzip on that. Gzip is what will compress that archive into a smaller file for submission. Once we have the gzip, we also want this to be have the V option, which tells us to use a verbose. So the verbose will list all of the files that it adds to the archive, so we can check to make sure it worked correctly. And finally, the F option here will create the archive for us. So now that we have this archive, these parameters, our next option is what is the name of the archive that we want. This is going to be our net ID underscore the project name, spacer in this case. And the common file extension for a gzip tar file is tgz. Then we can provide the directory we want to use as an input. In this case, it's the spacer directory here. And once we run that command, we will notice a list of all of the files with inside spacer that have been added to that archive. And now we have our resulting archive here, our lyseki underscore spacer.tgz in our case. So for this example, that's the file that we now would want to submit for ECE 275 project. What we can also do while we're at this now, we can test to make sure did that archive work correctly. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete, I'm going to move the previous rlyseki spacer project. And I'm just going to move that over to another project called old spacer. So now I can test to see if my .tgz, my tar gzip file, actually worked correctly, and do a test compilation on the system as well while we're at it. So to decompress this or to extract the file, we can do tgz. Instead of the C option, we want to use the extract option. We still want to tell it that we need to ungzip it. We can say it's verbose and that the input is coming from a file. So it's pretty much the same options, except this we use an X for extracting it. We then provide the name of the .tgz file, and we can see what it's extracted now. If I go ahead and cd into the rlysec spacer, we can see our files there. And to do a test compilation, which is the same steps we'll be using for grading our assignment, we can create our build directory, cd into that build directory, run the cmake using ... telling it to look at the previous directory for the cmakelist.txt file. Once that's done, we can finally run the make command, which will build our executable spacer, and we'll do just a quick test with to make sure we get our usage output here. And that's it for how to create and verify your submission archive is correct.